There is a young female journalist, conservative journalist, by the name of Laura Loomer.
If America's men acted like Laura Loomer, our problems will be fixed in about 5 minutes.
Chained herself to
She
Twitter.
chained her.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of Loomer Unleashed. I'm your host, Laura Loomer. This is episode 119 of Loomer Unleashed, and I have a jam-packed episode for you tonight. Lots to talk about. We are live right now on Rumble and X, so please be sure that you head on over to rumble.com/Laura Loomer, rumble.com/Laura Loomer. Click the follow button. Click that follow button. Make sure that you are subscribed to get notifications on my Rumble channel so that you never miss an episode of Loomer Unleashed. Also, I'm live right now streaming on X. Please be sure that you're following me on X at Laura Loomer and also on X at Loomer Unleashed. If you tuned into Loomer Unleashed last night, then you saw the live coverage. We carried it live here on Loomer Unleashed. President Trump's rally in Michigan, that really big rally that he had, successful rally, celebrating his first 100 days in office as president of the United States in the second Trump administration. And there's been a lot of talk about, whether or not promises made have been promises kept. And I would say that overall, right, if I were to give a percentage out of 100%, I would probably give the Trump administration an 85% out of 100% as it relates to promises that were made. And when you look at whether or not they've been kept, I think that President Trump has done a really great job, energizing our country, trying to restore a sense of patriotism to our country after 4 dreadful years of Joe Biden. But if we're being honest, there are some major issues with this Trump administration, especially as it relates to the DOJ. We're going to get into that tonight here in the section titled White House Vetting Crisis Continued. So I'm going to be highlighting some more very disturbing examples of this vetting crisis in the White House. And tonight's focus is going to focus on the DOJ, right? Some of the individuals who have brought into the DOJ. But look, we don't have the Epstein files. We were told that we were going to get the perhaps some unclassified copies of the 9/11 Commission report, the 12 pages that Kash Patel has in the past made promises to release. President Trump and Pam Bondi both said that we were going to see the release of the Epstein files. We still don't have those files. There's been a lot of talk about mass deportations. And while certainly deportations have happened, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's been mass deportations. At the current rate of deportations that we're witnessing here in the United States of America under the second Trump administration, if they were to continue on this rate of deporting this many illegal aliens per day, even over these next 4 years of Trump's presidency, we wouldn't have even, scratched the surface of deporting the millions of illegals that came into our country illegally under Joe Biden's administration. So we definitely can celebrate wins. And I know that the White House really tried to hype up the deportation campaign they have going by placing these placards, right? These mugshot placards in the lawn on signs on little metal stilts in the ground in front of the White House. They decorated the front entrance of the White House with these mugshot posters to create this very bombastic and exciting arrival for members of the press who arrived early in the morning for that very early morning White House press conference that we saw take place with Caroline Leavitt and Tom Homan, our wonderful border czar, talking about the wins of the Trump administration over these last 100 days. So We have a clip of that, actually. Let's go ahead and play that clip.
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Yes, I am. One, two, three.
And we saw last night when President Trump was speaking on stage in Michigan at his rally that he invited some of his key advisors and staffers to come on stage. One of those individuals is Stephen Miller, who is really one of the key architects of President Trump's immigration policy and has really been a strong advocate for mass deportations and has really held the line as it relates to pushing back on this judicial coup that we are witnessing take place in our country right now. So let's go ahead and get this clip of President Trump and Stephen Miller talking about the mass deportation campaign while they were on stage at the rally last night in Michigan.
Unbelievable. Hey, Stephen, come up here fast. The great Stephen Miller. Do we like Stephen? Where is Stephen? Come here, Stephen. I love this guy. I love this guy. There is nobody smarter or tougher than Stephen Miller. Stephen, say a couple. Who's enjoying 100 golden days of America? President Trump has achieved the most secure border in American history. He's fighting violent crime. He's fighting the drug cartels. He's cutting your taxes. He's cutting wasteful spending. He's draining the swamp. He's standing up to the radical left. He's standing up to the communists, and he's making America stronger than it's ever been. President Trump will never stop fighting for you, your children, and your family, and President Trump will make sure that in this country, not illegal aliens, not criminals, not gangbangers, but American citizens come first, last, and always. Thank you. And thank you, President Trump, for being the greatest president in American history.
Now, Stephen Miller's been doing a fantastic job, and he's one of the true Trump loyalists that was in the first Trump administration and remained very loyal to President Trump, even in the aftermath of J6. And now he's back for the second administration. So definitely want to applaud Stephen Miller for the great work that he's been doing. We also have some highlights from President Trump's rally. If you missed some of the more viral moments, and you can scroll my X account from yesterday as well, there were some pretty funny, humorous incidents that took place, including when a radical leftist lunatic protester who President Trump accidentally misgendered was getting thrown out. And of course, President Trump's comments on Indian-born Democrat Congressman Shri Thanadar, who filed articles of impeachment against President Trump. And again, you can go see all of those clips on my X account because we carried the stream live, or you can go watch the replay of the stream on my Rumble channel if you are so inclined to watch that rally, in case you missed it. But here's two of the general highlights from the rally in which President Trump was talking about the overall achievements that his administration has successfully completed over these last 100 days in office, and some of the things that he was celebrating last night in Michigan.
You finally have a president who is defending our borders and our nation. After decades of politicians who destroyed Detroit to build up Beijing, you finally have a champion for workers in the White House. And instead of putting China first, I'm putting Michigan first, and I'm putting America first. But I'm thrilled to be back in this beautiful state with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. And
And we're here tonight in the heartland of our nation to celebrate the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country. And that's according to many, many people. This is the best, they say, 100-day start of any president in history, and everyone is saying it. We've just gotten started. You haven't even seen anything yet. It's all just kicking in.
Lots to celebrate, definitely a lot of things to celebrate. But as I said yesterday, it's not all rainbows and unicorns, and personnel is policy. And unfortunately, we have seen that there are still some major issues in this Trump administration, particularly as it relates to the vetting crisis. And again, we're going to get into that later on in tonight's episode of Loomer Unleashed. But just to take a moment to celebrate the deportation of some of the worst criminals who were invited into our country under the Biden regime, I wanted to show you some of the backgrounds of some of these individuals whose faces, their mugshots, were featured on those placards in front of the White House. We have about 7 examples here that we're going to go through. If you want to see the full list, you can go to the White House website. In the first 100 days, the Trump administration has taken killers and rapists off our streets. This morning, of course, yesterday, images of the worst criminal illegal immigrants arrested since President Trump took office were placed on the lawn of the White House for the world to see, highlighting the Trump administration's unprecedented effort to secure our homeland and send these vicious criminals back to where they belong. So you can see the worst of the worst. I mean, some of these are just really horrific. You have arrest of a Jamaican national convicted of first-degree murder. You have, a rapist, okay? All these different individuals here. Mexican national convicted of murder and aggravated battery. You had an Indian, right? So people from all over the world. It's not just Mexicans, right? You have Indians, Mexicans, Burkina Faso, okay? He was rapist. Jamaica. Let's see, what else do we have? We have another Mexican. Keep scrolling down. Another Mexican, Salvadorian, a Dominican national. So again, we have some of the worst criminals in our country from all around the world, thanks to Joe Biden's open border policies. And now, thanks to President Trump and his administration, a lot of these people are being sent back to where they came from. Let's take a look at some of these examples. One of the individuals deported, his name is Apolinar Islas Hernandez, a very American sounding name, right? He received 15 years in prison for a party slang. Let's scroll down and take a look at some of the details. Apolinar Antonio Isla Hernandez was sentenced to 15 years in prison for shooting and killing Salvadorian national Freddy Rueda at a party in Santa Fe last April. Both men were 29 at the time. Okay, so that's, crazy activity, just showing up to a party and murdering somebody in cold blood. Let's take a look at Jose Enrique Poltroncos. Let's get this other article up. I think it's really important that we highlight some of the violent crimes committed by these individuals, because as the media and a lot of these activist judges continue to gaslight the American people into thinking that these are innocent people who, are entitled to due process, as they say. And now we have federal judges today ruling that the Trump administration can't deport illegal aliens unless they issue a warrant first. They can't arrest them unless they issue a warrant. So now we have to not only issue a warrant for every single illegal alien that the Trump administration wants to arrest, but you also have to give them a full-blown trial before they're deported back to the country they came from. At this rate, we're never going to have mass deportations, because that's just going to burden our legal system, given the fact that there are over 65 million criminal illegal aliens in our country. From a report yesterday in front of the White House, there's a poster of Jose Enrique Poltroncoso, a 31-year-old Dominican national arrested earlier this month by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Miami. He was convicted of fentanyl possession and carrying a concealed weapon. His criminal history also includes cocaine and heroin possession and stalking in Orange County, Florida, according to the White House. Here's another one of the individuals whose photos was featured on the lawn at the White House. Guatemalan national Norberto Che Zol, whose photo was also featured at the White House. He was convicted of indecent sexual contact with a child. In other words, pedophilia. Isn't it interesting how the media likes to come up with all these fancy words? Indecent sexual contact with a child. Is this really Fox News? Wow. Fox News calling pedophilia indecent sexual contact with a child. And I believe that's called pedophilia. Okay. We have words for a reason. Unbelievable. Let's see. Oh, here was a viral one. Let's scroll down. Virginia Basura Gonzalez. So this is a woman who, was very mimetic. She was this very overweight Dominican woman who was crying, and her facial expression when she got arrested by ICE was hilarious. And so I remember when she got arrested for fentanyl possession, her mugshot went viral all over the internet, and people were making all types of memes about it because she just had the funniest look on her face and just looked like such a cartoon character. But let's go ahead and show it. I'm sure some of you saw the image on the internet. Very heavy-set woman with her gut out in gray sweatpants, crying like a baby after she got arrested, and now she's going to be deported for fentanyl possession. So, pretty insane-looking individual there. Probably saw her mugshot. Let's see. There's some more. Carlos Ambriz Estrada. I have a list here on my desk. There's so many of them, but trying to find the worst of the worst for you because, of course, there's a lot of drug dealers and there's a lot of rapists and there's a lot of killers, but there's a lot of pedophiles on here. And when you see the Democrats trying to protect these illegal aliens and say that they need to have due process and that President Trump needs to bring these people back from El Salvador, and their rights are being violated because they were shipped to El Salvador, and now they're in El Salvador CCOP prison. Oh my God, it's so horrible. We got to bring these people back. And you see people like Chris Van Hollen traveling to El Salvador to advocate for these people. Just know that a lot of these individuals who the Democrats are advocating for are full-blown pedophiles, okay? Let's take a look at number 22. Carlos Ambriz Estrada, deported after killing an infant. And then, of course, he re-entered the United States of America, too. So take a look at his case. A Mexican national previously deported in 2006 for killing his infant son was arrested in Catoosa after unlawfully re-entering the United States, federal prosecutors said. The DOJ said Carlos Ambriz Estrada pled guilty to deliberate homicide in 1994 for the death of his 36-day-old son in Montana. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison and served nearly 10 before being released in 2006 and deported. These are the people that the Democrats want to protect, people who murder their own children, people who rape children, people that are poisoning people's children with fentanyl, okay? I don't really understand what the long-term political game is for the Democrat Party, because really, what are they doing? They have record low approval rates right now, and they're trying to die on the hill by protecting criminal illegal aliens, drug dealers, pedophiles, criminal rapists, murderers, illegal aliens, all of them. And these are the people that they're defending more than the American citizen victims of these criminal illegal aliens. So look, it's the midterms are going to be the Republicans to lose. If the Republicans end up losing the midterms, it's going to be because they were lazy. Because if the Republicans fumble this going into 2026 and in November of 2026, and they're not able to pull off a massive victory and keep the House and keep the Senate and codify President Trump's agenda over these next 4 years, then what are they doing? Honestly, what are they doing? Do the Republicans even deserve to win another election if they can't, score a touchdown with all these victories that President Trump is securing and implementing throughout his second administration? The midterms are the GOP's to lose. But as we know, the Republican Party, they're pros. These people are pros at losing elections and losing power, giving up power, making excuses for why they can't hold corrupt Democrats accountable, making excuses for why they can't impeach corrupt, radical activist judges. So again, it's constantly excuse after excuse with the Republican Party, and we're going to see. We're going to see. Here's another one, number 35. Esau Matul Hernandez. He was charged with sexual battery on a child by the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office. Let's go ahead and get this one pulled up. In January of 2024, under the Biden regime. On Christmas Day, a 13-year-old girl disclosed 36-year-old Esau Matul Hernandez of Fort Walton Beach had been sexually abusing her since she was 11 years old. An investigation was immediately launched. A forensic interview with the victim took place December 27th at the Emerald Coast Children's Advocacy Center, where child protection team investigators say she disclosed consistent information. During the investigation, the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office developed probable cause for a charge against Matul Hernandez of sexual battery on a victim under the age of 12 years old. In addition, Matul Hernandez was determined to be in the United States illegally, and records show he had been previously deported in September with no record of legal reentry. It's just unbelievable. So a lot of these people who were previously deported were able to come back into the United States of America to carry out sex crimes against children, engage in pedophilia, because of the Democrat Party and their open borders policies, because they want to call these people undocumented and they want to promote things like everybody's welcome here. I just want to know what the running count is of how many young girls, how many young boys have been sexually abused, raped, murdered, inappropriately touched or harassed by criminal illegal aliens, thanks to the Democrats and their open border policies. It's a lot, you know, it's a lot. And how many children are living in silence and pain and suffering because they're too afraid to come out and disclose what happened to them, right? Maybe they're still in a home with a criminal illegal alien who hasn't yet been identified or deported. But there are a lot of children. There were over 300,000 missing children under the Biden regime who Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, remember Kamala Harris, our borders are, they just lost. They don't even know where these children are. We can even pull this up and people can see for themselves. How do you just lose over 300,000 children? How do over 300,000 go missing, children go missing under the Biden administration? Here we go, CBS News. Let's go back to that one. CBS News. Trump claims Biden lost track of over 300,000 migrant children. And of course, they try to fact check it. This was December of 2024. We don't need the leftist media to fact check. These are the same leftist media entities that are all currently being sued by Donald Trump for defamation, many of them having to settle with him before a trial because, well, you know, a lot of them are guilty of defaming President Trump, and we've seen that they consistently lie. And even Eric Adams, the Democrat, well, I guess he doesn't want to be a Democrat anymore, but the Democrat mayor of New York City has come out and accused the Biden administration of losing. By that time, the number increased to 500,000. Right? We have that article, too. You have Eric Adams last year accusing the Biden regime of losing 500,000 migrant children. How do you lose 500,000 migrant children? Where are the kids? Who has them? Where are they living? 500,000 children. Who knows? Maybe all of those children have been trafficked and are now being sexually abused. A ton of different articles. Let's go to news. You can type in news. There we go. Daily Mail. See, I'm a fan of fact checks because anytime I tell you something, you know you're going to be able to look it up and see it for yourself. Let's read it. Biden administration can't find 500,000 migrant kids as Eric Adams changes sanctuary city policies. Eric Adams claimed the Biden administration, let's scroll up on the date just so that people can see nothing's been done about this. This was December of 2024. Okay, so about 5 months ago, Eric Adams claimed that the Biden administration has lost 500,000 migrant children as he announced plans to use executive orders to stop some of the Big Apple's sanctuary city policies. Adams met with Donald Trump's incoming border czar Tom Homan, with the Democrat mayor expressing an enthusiasm to work with the incoming administration amid the president-elect's promise of mass deportation. Following the meeting, Adams defended his recent efforts to work with the Trump administration while taking a swipe at the Biden White House for its inaction on the migrant crisis. Quote, We have 500,000 children who have sponsors in this country that we can't find. We can't find them. We don't know if they're doing child labor, sex crimes, being exploited. 500,000 children. There is a level of hypocrisy for people who say they want to protect everyone. I want to support innocent children and those who are victims of crimes. Those who don't understand that, it's not up to me to try to convince them. And he's right. Look, I mean, Eric Adams, I don't agree with all of his policies, and he has been hostile towards President Trump. But the reality is that, you know, you hear all the Democrats talk about how they're the party of social justice and the party that has compassion for people, except when it's missing children that are being raped and abused and human trafficking schemes by criminal illegal aliens, right? They don't really have much compassion when it comes to the families of American citizens whose daughters were raped and killed by criminal illegal aliens. Right? These people voted against the Laken Riley Act. These are the people that Chris Van Hollen traveled abroad to El Salvador to go advocate for an illegal alien, but he wouldn't advocate for the family members of victims of illegal aliens who were murdered and killed in his own district here in the United States of America. So Eric Adams is right. And this is why I predict we're going to see a lot of Democrats leave the Democrat Party. I'm not talking about Democrat voters. I'm talking about elected Democrats switching to independent or rebranding themselves as Republicans and kissing the ring to Donald Trump. We've seen it with Eric Adams. We recently saw it here in Florida with the legislature Democrat speaker Jason Pizzo, who denounced his party affiliation with the Democrats on the floor of the legislature about a week or so ago, and said that he submitted paperwork with the Florida Division of Elections so that he could become an independent. We just saw yesterday in Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, anti-Trump Gretchen Whitmer, who was once flirting with imagery that was inciting violence and assassination threats against Donald Trump. Now she's giving Donald Trump a hug. She went from hiding in the Oval Office with a binder covering her face a couple weeks ago to then embracing Donald Trump. Don't be surprised, and I said this last night on my show, if we see Gretchen Whitmer try to change sides, try to rebrand. She's very much into her social media marketing, and she likes to constantly rebrand herself, whether it's Big Gretch or who knows, maybe the next Gretchen Whitmer rebranding is going to be when she decides to leave the Democrat Party and try to make amends for all the lockdowns in Michigan and all of her anti-Trump rhetoric and her participation in fraudulent elections in the state of Michigan. So we're going to see what happens. But the Democrat Party is facing historic low approval ratings. So, there's no going up. There's no going up from here. The more they protest and the more that they yap and the more that they scream about how, we got to resist. We have to resist. The more the average person is waking up to how radical the Democrats are. You can't just scream about Elon Musk all day, okay? Elon Musk is a special government employee. He's going to be gone soon. So when Musk is gone, what are all these radicals in the Sunrise Movement and Indivisible and the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders, and we're going to get into that tonight too. What are they going to talk about? What are they going to talk about when Elon Musk, special government employee, Elon Musk is no longer in the Trump administration and they hold these rallies? Musk or us, Musk or us, Musk or us, right? Talking about fighting the oligarchy. Well, you can't blame Elon for everything because, Elon's going to be gone soon. So I predict that the Democrat Party's approval rating is going to decrease. And you may be wondering, well, then how can you say that the Republicans are going to lose the midterms? Logically, that doesn't make sense, Laura. If the Democrats have low approval rating, well, if you have a Republican Congress, right, the House, the Senate that refuses to codify President Trump's agenda, it doesn't matter how low the approval rating of the Democrat Party is. It doesn't matter if people have a higher, approval rating of Donald Trump as, compared to the Democrat Party. And I say approval rating of Donald Trump instead of an approval rating of the Republican Party, because Donald Trump is the Republican Party. And unfortunately, it's been 10 years now, and the Republicans in Congress still don't understand this. They still do not understand that Donald Trump is the Republican Party. And so what does this mean? Well, this means that Donald Trump's not on the ballot, right? Donald Trump isn't on the ballot, you guys. Donald Trump is in office. And yes, I know it's funny. We were cheering last night and laughing our asses off when, he's entertaining a third term and everyone's chanting 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Yeah, it's all fun, right? It's fun. Ha ha ha, right? It's all fun and games. But the reality is who knows? Who knows if Donald Trump is going to have a third term or whether or not legally that can even be done. Technically speaking, there was a break in between both of his presidencies because, well, the 2020 election was stolen. Who knows? Maybe Donald Trump could legally have a third term. But the reality is that Donald Trump is already in the White House. He's not at the top of the ticket. This is not 2024 when all of these members of Congress and the Senate are able to ride Donald Trump's coattails, which is why we were able to keep the House and win back the Senate in 2024, right? It was a mandate. It was a mandate sent by the MAGA GOP base to restore sanity and order to our country. But if Donald Trump is not at the top of the ticket, you completely deflate that ticket. So what does this mean? Well, a lot of these people who were excited to come out and vote for Donald Trump in the general election, they're not necessarily registered primary voters. Maybe some of these people don't even participate in primaries. Maybe they don't even participate in midterms. Maybe they were just so fed up with Biden that they wanted to vote in a general election. There were a lot of first-time voters that voted for Donald Trump who had never voted before. There are people that crossed the aisle, or there's people that are Democrat and maybe they like their Democrat members, but they wanted to support Donald Trump. Although I can't imagine people voting for Trump, but then wanting to then vote for their Democrat senator or Democrat member of Congress, right? It doesn't make much sense. But there are people out there. There are people out there that probably didn't like Kamala Harris who voted down ballot. They voted down ballot Democrat, but at the top of the ticket, they voted Republican for Donald Trump. That happened when I ran for Congress. I saw that a lot. I saw in 2020 when I was running for Congress in Palm Beach, there were people that voted for Joe Biden, but then they voted for me, the Republican, instead of Lois Frankel, the Democrat congresswoman in my district, the district that President Trump lives in, the Mar-a-Lago district, where he voted for me and endorsed me. So what does this mean? What does this mean for the midterms? If Donald Trump is not at the top of the ticket, again, it doesn't matter how low the approval rating is for the Democrat Party if people are not motivated to get out and vote. If you have low voter enthusiasm because people feel like, we won, it's done, we don't need to do anything anymore, our guy's in, that's it, I'm just going to give up on politics now and I'm never going to pay attention ever again. There are a lot of people out there like that are just really kind of done and they think, well, Donald Trump's in, I did what I did, I don't need to pay attention anymore, that's it, goodbye. And they'll never vote again. Or maybe they will at another time, but not until there's a presidential election. How is the Republican Party going to excite all of those voters, all those first-time voters, or the non-high propensity Republican voters to come out and vote in the midterms? What do they have to offer them? What is there to offer them if Donald Trump is going to be in the White House these next 4 years? So if we lose the midterms, the reason I say that the midterms are the GOP's to lose, it's going to be because Republicans are not doing enough to keep the enthusiasm. They could keep the enthusiasm by impeaching these judges, making everything about Donald Trump, making everything about fulfilling the MAGA mandate, making everything about holding people accountable, demanding accountability from the DOJ, fulfilling these day one promises. But I'll tell you right now, every single time a day one promise is not fulfilled, whether it be releasing the Epstein files or locking some people up, investigating voter fraud, whatever it may be, you take a notch out of people's excitement, goes down. And then you just get to a point one day when people wake up and they're like, I don't really give a shit anymore. I don't really care. Trump's in the White House. Doesn't really matter. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. I voted for Trump and we don't have the Epstein files and nothing's really changed. I'm just going to jail. And you're going to discourage people. You're just going to discourage people into not wanting to vote. But they're not going to feel like they're hurting President Trump because they already got Donald Trump elected. But it will hurt Donald Trump because if the Democrats take control of the House, they are going to launch impeachment inquiries into President Donald Trump. They already are, right? We have this clown Indian Democrat-born Congressman Sri Thanadar. We have a clip. I know yesterday we played a clip on the show of President Trump calling out this ridiculous guy, Sri Thanadar, at his Michigan rally. We also have the clip of Loomer Unleashed DC correspondent Charles Downs confronting this character. We'll go ahead and play that again. We played that last night, but you already have Democrats that are trying to beat the impeachment drum, right? Because this is going to excite their base. So even if the Republicans have a majority right now, you're going to see the opposite take place. Excitement for Republicans is going to go down. Excitement for Democrats is going to go up. And it's all going to revolve around who shows up in greater force on election day for the midterms. And at this rate, I think the Democrats, even though they have a lower approval rating right now than Donald Trump, I think that the Democrats are going to bring more people to the polls on election day than the Republicans, because when you have vetting crises, and again, we're going to get into that, when you have promises being broken by agency officials and there not being any consequences to address these broken promises, you deflate the energy. When you have a lack of accountability for people who committed crimes, that committed treason, it's 100 days. We heard all this tough talk from people, including Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, about how the whole FBI has to be dismantled. Everybody's got to go to jail. We got to fire all the Biden holdovers. We have to start from scratch. We have to clear out all the levels of the FBI, or else we're going to have a deep state, right? But now we're told, we can't fire people. It's going to look bad. We can't just fire people based off their political affiliation. Well, why not? Every other president fires the holdovers from the previous administration. Isn't that what Obama did? Isn't that what Biden did? They put Trump supporters on a blacklist after January 6th, and they said that none of those people could have federal jobs. So what's the issue with firing all of these career bureaucrats that have loyalties to the Democrats, right? And then you give them an option, and you say, well, look, you don't want to fire these people based off of political affiliation, even though you are 100% entitled to doing so. How about you polygraph them? Because, well, failing a polygraph test is grounds for termination. And you say these things to these people, and what do? Well, they don't do shit. They just sit there and, well, nothing gets done, right? We're told, oh, we don't have enough polygraph machines. Oh, the optics of polygraphing. Oh, polygraphs aren't really that reliable. There's just constant excuse after excuse after excuse. And one of these days, a lack of vetting or, continued excuse making is going to create a massive crisis that the Trump administration, in my opinion, is not going to be able to bounce back from. And the Democrats are capitalizing on this. We're going to get into this momentarily. But before that, I want to take a moment to thank tonight's sponsor of Loomer Unleashed. And that, of course, is Kirk Elliott Precious Metals.
Breaking news. Laura Loomer has been canceled. The President of the United States has refused to take her phone calls as he suspects she is soon to be arrested.
Is Laura Loomer the most hated person on planet Earth? We want to hear from you, the listener, and get your opinion on whether or not...
Man, I tell you, I heard she got canceled. We coming for you, bitch. We coming to your house, Laura Loomer. We fight. We know where you live. We coming for you right now. We coming for your friends. We coming for your friend's little dog.
Frankly, I hope they throw her away for the rest of her life. I hope she dies.
She is currently on the run from authorities. She is described as armed and dangerous.
I just can't believe she's been getting away with it for this. An angry mob appears to be forming outside the home of journalist Laura Loomer.
What is wrong with you? Why are you not panicking?
Because I called Kirk Elliott Precious Metals, and I learned how adding gold and silver to my portfolio is one of the safest ways to not just grow my finances, but to also protect them from the uncertainty of the future. So I'm fine.
Call economist Kirk Elliott at 720-605-3900 or schedule a call online at kepm.com/Loomer to learn how you can safely grow your retirement portfolio with precious metals.
Be sure you head on over to Kirk Elliott Precious Metals by visiting kepm.com/Loomer. Again, you guys, that's kepm.com/Loomer. Let them know that Laura Loomer sent you. We've had Dr. Kirk on the program many times before. They have a team of experts at Kirk Elliott Precious Metals that can answer all of your questions, all of your concerns. So again, Kirk Elliott Precious Metals, KEPM.com/Loomer, KEPM.com/Loomer, or you can call Dr. Kirk at 720-605-3900. Again, that's 720-605-3900. So as I was saying, Democrat enthusiasm goes up as their approval rating goes down. Republican enthusiasm goes down as the approval rating stays the same. Midterms are coming. And the populists in the Democrat Party understand this energy shift, and they understand how the Republicans perpetually lose. Doesn't matter. We saw this during the first Trump administration. Donald Trump had the House, he had the Senate, the White House, and we lost the House. We ended up losing the House, even though Donald Trump was a fantastic president. He is a fantastic president. Best president of my lifetime. So if we look at history as a reminder of what generally happens in these midterm cycles, Republicans have a history. They have a pattern of losing the midterms, especially in the first Trump administration. And people like AOC and Bernie Sanders are taking advantage of this. They understand that there are, people in the Republican Party who are happy with President Trump, and they believe that the promises made have been kept. But there's also some people in the Republican Party who don't feel like promises made have been kept. There's also a growing sense of class consciousness that is really engulfing people on the left and the right. That's why you're seeing people like Luigi Mangione, the individual who allegedly shot and killed the United Healthcare CEO, murdered him. That's why you're seeing the glorification of people like Luigi Mangione, where individuals have raised over $1 million. Strangers on the internet have raised over $1 million for Luigi Mangione's criminal defense team to represent him, because they view this guy as an icon. They view him as a hero for Marxism, for class consciousness. And AOC is touring the country with Bernie Sanders right now, trying to gain a national audience for her, not just a congressional campaign, but when you look at the numbers as it relates to the spending, the disbursement numbers on her FEC reports and the recent FEC reports from Bernie Sanders, pretty obvious that Sandy from the block, right? She likes to call herself AOC, but we know her real name is Sandy. Got this whole Jenny from the block vibe. I'm just a girl from the Bronx. Trying to position herself as just a girl from the Bronx, changing her messaging. We have the reports exclusively on Loomered.com. Loomered.com, you can read all about it. We broke this story. While AOC and Bernie Sanders have been touring the country talking about class consciousness and talking about fighting the oligarchy on their Fighting Oligarchy tour, and talking about how terrible Elon Musk is and how terrible Donald Trump is and how we need to protect all these illegal aliens, they're spending a lot of money. And we're going to break that spending down. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. AOC is now creating speculation that she actually has aspirations for higher office, that she's not content with just being a girl from the Bronx, representing a district in New York City as a member of the squad. I believe personally that she's getting ready to either run for United States Senate in New York, or perhaps even launch a 2028 presidential campaign. But I'll let you be the judge of that. Take a look at this video reel that she just launched that is compiled with clips and B-roll from her very expensive and luxurious Fighting Oligarchy tour with Bernie Sanders.
You know, Idaho, I am so touched being here. I'm a girl from the Bronx. To be welcomed here in this state, all of us together, seeing our common cause, this is what this country is all about. Don't let them trick us into thinking we are enemies. Don't let them trick us into thinking we can be separated into rural and urban, black and white and Latino. We are one.
Alexandria, they told us this was a conservative state. They got it wrong.
And Idaho, I know that looking around here, it can feel impossible for Republicans out here to be defeated. That's not true. It's simply not true. And from the waitress who is now speaking to you today from this podium, I can tell you, impossible is nothing.
And as Alexandria just said, when we stand together, when we do not allow them to divide us up, there is no stopping us.
Miracles start with mustard seeds. And that is what each and every one of you represent today. Small miracles of faith in ourselves, in each other, and in the refusal to give up.
So what did you guys think? That is definitely not a congressional ad. That is the ad of somebody that is trying to broaden their national appeal and gain a national audience. But don't take it from me. Let's look at the exclusive report that I just released the other day on Loomer.com. Let's head on over to the big screen and look at the receipts ourselves. Exclusive. AOC and Bernie Sanders have spent nearly $250,000 on private jets during their Fighting Oligarchy tour, despite touting Green New Deal policies. You can scroll down and we're going to take a look at these FEC reports. Recent Federal Election Commission filings reveal significant expenditures by Representative AOC and Senator Bernie Sanders for their joint Fighting Oligarchy tour, which began on February 21st, 2025. The tour, aimed at rallying opposition to the Trump administration, has drawn scrutiny for its substantial costs and hypocritical messaging, particularly regarding the Marxist duo's use of private jets for travel and AOC's use of over $700,000 in grassroots donations for paid voter outreach services, despite her claims that her crowds are organic. So you see that AOC and Bernie Sanders are, going around. She just took a shot at Donald Trump last night. If you look at her Twitter account, she said, "Oh, you can tell he's nervous," right? Trying to make a reference to President Trump attacking him, making it sound like, it's getting in his head that AOC and Bernie Sanders are having these rallies across the country, comparing crowd sizes. So it says Trump begins his 100-day rally speech in Michigan by saying Bernie Sanders is drawing crowds too, but ours are bigger. And then AOC said, "Tell me we're in his head without telling me we're in his head." Well, are her crowds really organic? We know that President Trump's crowds are organic because there's always, a sign out the door and never seating left at Trump rallies. But if you take a look at these receipts that we've uncovered here at Loomer Unleashed, let's go back to this Loomer article. I'm going to show you myself the breakdown. If AOC, who represents a safe Democrat seat in New York City, was only trying to maintain her seat, she would not be spending these grassroots dollars, right? Over $700,000, as I pointed out in this article, on paid voter outreach services, which includes list purchasing. The media says that AOC and Sanders are drawing authentic crowds, despite AOC's campaign spending heavily on list acquisition just prior to their tour and shortly after. Scroll down. We can scroll up a little bit to the previous section. According to FEC records, the campaign committee, Friends of Bernie Sanders, has disbursed $221,723.83 on private jet services since March 7th, 2025. So, we're talking less than 2 months here, okay? The payments were made to 3 aviation companies: Cirrus Aviation Services, based in Nevada, Ventura Jets, LLC in New York, and NJet in Illinois. Notably, on March 18th, 2025, a single day's expenditure on private jet travel amounted to $102,813.25. They spent nearly these Marxists, right, that want to talk about fighting the oligarchy and how, we have to tax the rich, right? To all these rich billionaires in the world, they're so evil, they're so this, they're so that. Right, they're living the lifestyle of the oligarchs that they are claiming to be against. Flying on private jets, that really doesn't sound very Marxist or commandeering to me, AOC. It doesn't really sound like you're a common woman. It doesn't really sound like Bernie Sanders is a common man when you guys are spending over $102,000 in a single day on private jets? You think the average person who's struggling to put food on the table and gas in their car can afford to spend $102,000 on a private jet in a single day? Do you honestly think that that's happening? Give me a break. The tour has included stops in multiple cities, including Omaha, Nebraska, Iowa City, Iowa, with events held at venues like the Orpheum Theater and the Englert Theater. You can scroll down and you can see the receipts yourself. Again, if you want to independently verify all of this, you can go to my website, loomer.com. But as you can see here, it says Friends of Bernie Sanders. The dates are listed along with the expenditure total. The media, of course, doesn't report on this. They just say, oh, we saw them get on a jet, but they're not showing you how much money it's costing. Along with being hypocrites, as it relates to their constant, speeches about class warfare and class consciousness and taxing the rich and how, all these elitists are so against everyday people. Yeah. These individuals, Bernie Sanders and AOC, rose to prominence for touting their Green New Deal. I thought that private jets consumed an enormous amount of fossil fuels, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought that fossil fuels were needed in order to fly on a private jet. So I'm just failing to understand how these openly Marxist Green New Deal advocates can justify spending almost $250,000 in less than 2 months on private jets. That's a lot of fossil fuels for some people that go around talking about needing to protect the climate and how we have a climate crisis and the world is going to end because of rising temperatures, global warming, right? The world might end, but AOC and Bernie Sanders are still going to have their private jet, okay? You just got to love the hypocrisy. But wait, there's even more. Let's get back to this article here. Meanwhile, Representative AOC's campaign, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for Congress, has spent at least $690,000 on list acquisition and texting services between February 12th and March 31st of 2025. These payments were made to Middle Seat Values, a Washington, D.C.-based political consulting firm that describes itself as a full-service firm for progressive causes and candidates. The firm's website states its mission is to support campaigns, organizations, and causes fighting for progressive change. And then if you look at these reports here, if you scroll down a little bit, you see there's the report. Scroll back up a little bit. The largest single disbursement to Middle Seat Values from AOC's congressional campaign was $250,000 on February 12, 2025, followed by additional payments of $200,000 on March 31st, $140,000 on February 3rd, and $100,000 on March 17th. So again, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of grassroots money. You like to hear that AOC, she likes to talk a lot about on social media about how she raises grassroots donations and how she has an army of everyday people, common people, struggling people, everyday Americans that are struggling to just get by, right? She talks about how a lot of her donors are college students and people that barely have any money. Well, if they barely have any money, why are you wasting their money? Is it really necessary to fly on a private jet? Why don't you just fly coach? I mean, if you're really such a commoner, right? If you're such a working class advocate, as you say you are, why are you traveling on private jets and wasting all these people's money on luxury? And why are you being dishonest and telling people that this is a fighting oligarchy tour? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Ron DeSantis's book tour. Do you remember when he had his book tour when he was traveling all throughout the country and it was the Florida blueprint, but really it was a shadow presidential campaign, and he was using all of these donations that were given to him by Trump supporters to travel to launch a book tour, but really what he was doing was just trying to build a national appeal before he launched a presidential campaign against Donald Trump. That's exactly what AOC is doing here if you look at these numbers. I mean, these are not small numbers. $250,000 for list acquisition. She already has the list. She's a sitting member of Congress. The DNC would be giving her this data if that were the case. She already has the data for her district. She already knows who all the voters are in her district. And as I said before, it's an overwhelmingly safe Democrat district. So What exactly is all this money that she's spending? $700,000. And that's just so far from the beginning of this year. That's not even including what the next FEC report's going to show. So already that is $1 million. And she is the incumbent congresswoman. There's no need for her to be spending $1 million to keep her seat right now before the 2026 midterms have even really started to aggressively begin. Because she's not trying to just keep her seat in Congress. She's clearly trying to run for higher office, whether that's Senate or whether she's trying to launch a presidential campaign. You look at those numbers, $700,000 on list acquisition between all these different disbursements, $250,000 on February 12th, $200,000 on March 31st, $140,000 on list acquisition on February 3rd, another $100,000 on March 17th, plus the $250,000 for private jets. That is $1 million. So again, if you are in denial, thinking that AOC just wants to be content in her seat as a, progressive member of the squad, which she's been doing since, I believe, 2018, 2019, well, you're sorely mistaken, because she clearly has a lot of political ambition. And I would not be sleeping on AOC. I know that people like to laugh and they like to joke about her and act like, she's a joke, because she really is quite stupid at times. She's far from stupid. She may say things that sound stupid, but she's very strategic. She's not politically stupid. She's definitely a radical, which is why her rants and her attacks on President Trump and the ridiculous things that she says comes across as stupid to us. But she's very emotionally manipulative, and she's touring the country right now with enormous resources. She's already spent, right, according to these most recent reports, within the first 4 months of this year, over $1 million. Over $1 million outside of her district. Why is she investing $1 million outside of her district? Why? I'll tell you why. Because as I said before, she's trying to build this national audience. And I think that some people are starting to catch on. There's an article in the New York Post, I believe. AOC leaves door open for 2028 presidential bid as campaign buzz soars. Let's go ahead and get this article up. Oh, Fox News. There was one in a New York Post too, but Murdoch owns it all. So what difference does it make? AOC leaves door open for 2028 presidential bid as campaign buzz soars. AOC tells Fox News Digital she's focused on protecting Medicaid right now, not campaigns or elections. Well, if she was focused on protecting Medicaid, why is she touring the entire country and not doing her job in Congress? Why is she going on a tour instead of actually meeting with her constituents if she's focused on protecting Medicaid? It's another lie, just more gaslighting from the American people. That's part of her pitch, right? Oh, I'm just trying to protect Medicaid. I'm just Jenny from the block. I'm a girl from the Bronx. I'm just a bartender from the Bronx trying to protect Medicaid. She grew up in Westchester. Her name is Sandy. She's not a girl from the Bronx. She's extremely well funded, and she doesn't give a shit about Medicaid. She cares about climbing the ranks and acquiring power. And she's traveling the country, quietly spending this money, acquiring lists and acquiring contacts so that she can strike and either take a Senate seat or run a presidential campaign in 2028. That's what's happening here. You can scroll down, take a look at this article. AOC did not rule out a 2028 presidential aspirations when asked by Fox News Digital about her viral video that had pundits guessing if she was soft launching her campaign. She is soft launching, by the way. I think what people should be most concerned about is the fact that Republicans are trying to cut Medicaid right now and people's health care is in danger. That's really what my central focus is, the New York Democrat said when asked if she was considering a run for president, despite President Trump's assurances that he wouldn't cut Medicaid. She continued, this moment isn't about campaigns or elections or about politics. It's about making sure people are protected. And we've got people that are getting locked up for exercising their First Amendment rights. First of all, she is such a gaslighter. She had no problem with people getting locked up for exercising their First Amendment rights. Freedom of association. Hello. Look at every single J6er who was locked up for exercising their First Amendment right. Petitioning their government for grievances, using their First Amendment for freedom of expression. about the stolen election of 2020. So AOC didn't do anything to advocate for any of the January 6ers who were locked up for exercising their First Amendment rights, right? So now she wants to cry all these crocodile tears for the radical Muslim Hamas supporters in her district in New York who are getting locked up and threatened with deportation by the Trump administration. She does not give a shit about protecting the First Amendment. Let's be very clear. This is a woman that supported legislation to criminalize memes, okay? At one point in time, she was talking about how people should go to jail for making memes that influence elections, okay? We're getting 2-year-olds that are getting deported into cells in Honduras. Okay, but where is she to talk about the 2-year-olds that are getting raped and killed by illegal aliens in her district from Honduras? Again, like that photo. You know that photo of her? Do we have that photo of AOC by the border wall? That notorious photo of her? And she's like, AOC border wall photo. It was so funny. Yeah, the image of her pretending to cry. So funny. That's that image of her when she went down to the border. And she put her hand in her face and pretended to cry and act like she was so sad. But you'll never see AOC cry any tears for any of the victims of illegal aliens, any of the victims, the children who've been raped and killed by Biden's illegals. And the illegals that AOC protects too. Don't forget, she's a congresswoman in New York City where they actually tried to allow for illegal aliens to vote last year in New York. Do you remember that? Do you remember when the Democrats in New York were trying to create legislation to allow for illegal aliens to vote? Yep, AOC supported that too. That is why she wants to launch a national campaign. She wants to energize people to have a Democrat comeback. And if there's anybody who is going to probably energize the left into showing up to vote, it's AOC. I mean, you can hate her, you can mock her, you can make fun of her all you want, but you can't deny the fact that she is a very effective community organizer when it comes to organizing the radical left. I don't agree with her politics. I don't like her as a person, but I will say that she is very effective when it comes to organizing crowds, mobilizing the youth, and getting her message out in a very concise manner. And she's built almost like a cult following online with her supporters. And that's why she's one of the top fundraisers in the Democrat Party. And she's continuously outraised a lot of her more senior Democrat counterparts because a lot of the Democrat youth, they look at her as a leader in the party. And that is why I believe that she is looking at launching a national campaign, whether that's a Senate campaign or a presidential campaign, we will see. But she did hint once before, a while back, of perhaps launching a Senate campaign against Chuck Schumer. This was last year, I believe, when AOC, I think we even have an article if we pull it up, AOC, just type in AOC Senate Chuck Schumer. There we go. There was a poll that was conducted on April 4th. AOC leads Schumer in head-to-head New York primary matchup by double digits. You can scroll up right there. The liberal group Data for Progress conducted the survey of likely Democratic voters. Scroll down. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is leading Chuck Schumer by double digits in a new head-to-head poll of the 2028 New York primary. The survey by the liberal firm Data for Progress, first shared with Politico, found that 55% of Democratic likely voters said they supported or leaned towards supporting Representative Ocasio-Cortez, while 36% backed or leaned toward backing Senator Schumer. 9% were undecided. So again, this is what you call a planted story. Obviously, AOC is likely considering a Senate campaign, has polling done, leaks it to the media because they want to create this idea that she's going to be running for Senate. And then she has one of the most senior Democrat members of the Senate, Bernie Sanders, who, is a Marxist idol. He's also in the United States Senate. It makes sense why they're touring the country together. I could totally see Bernie Sanders endorsing AOC for United States Senate if she were to run against Chuck Schumer. But she's honestly such a narcissist that I wouldn't put it past her to also run for president. So while it's probably more likely that she's thinking of running for Senate, don't put it past her to actually think that she could run for president. That's how they'll couch it. Oh, we need a first female president. Look how young she is. It's going to restore youth to America. No more old white dudes. I mean, she's certainly younger than J.D. Vance, right? So we're looking at a matchup in 2028. Not that that really matters, because for me, someone being a woman or someone being young doesn't really matter when it comes to them holding office. Donald Trump is almost 80 years old, but he is sharp as a whip, right? So age is really just a number. It really just depends on your cognitive ability. And I would say that Donald Trump, even in his older age, is much quicker and much smarter than somebody like AOC. So none of that really matters when you get down to it. Moving on now. Every single year, there's always a story about a member of Congress who gets caught insider trading. And we have one of those stories for you tonight. Marjorie Taylor Greene, or as I've called her in the past, Marjorie Trader Greene. She's not exactly a friend of mine. She's in the news. Let's look what MTG is up to. Marjorie Taylor Greene faces scrutiny over stock trades before town hall. You know, when I ran for Congress twice. One of the things that I campaigned on was banning stock trading for members of Congress and their spouses. Let's scroll down on this article here. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene disclosed stock trades made just before former President Trump announced a 90-day pause on tariffs, promoting accusations of potential insider trading. You can scroll up a bit. Scroll up some more. Scroll up. I mean, you know, you see a lot of hypocrisy in the GOP. I'm pretty sure Marjorie Taylor Greene has at least on one occasion called Nancy Pelosi out for insider trading. I bet we could probably find a tweet if we were to look hard enough. But it's so hypocritical because, you know, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I'm pretty sure has attacked Nancy Pelosi for stock trading before insider trading. And now she's engaged in similar activities. And this isn't the first time that Marjorie Taylor Greene has been called out for this behavior. Let's go back to the article. I mean, there are countless articles online. If you were to look yourself, you could see that Marjorie Taylor Greene has been called out for suspicious stock trades as a member of Congress on multiple occasions. So we've talked about it on this program here before. She claimed to be against all the vaccine manufacturers during COVID, talked a big talk about the vaccine, and come to find out she owns stock in vaccine manufacturers. Talked about how she was against the military-industrial complex and how she wanted to not send money to Ukraine, but right before a defense briefing on the Ukraine-Russia war, she invested in some defense stock. So kind of suspicious activity going on. I'm not really a fan of Marjorie. As many of you know, we've sparred multiple times in the past, and she's attacked me publicly, tried to falsely accuse me of being a racist last year after President Trump invited me to the presidential debate because I made a funny joke about Kamala Harris and Curry. But you'll scroll down and look at the details of this case, because it doesn't really matter. If this is a program to call out corruption on both sides of the aisle, we're calling out AOC, we're calling out MTG, we'll call out anybody here on Loomer Unleashed. It really doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you're doing something wrong, we're going to call you out. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a staunch ally. I don't even understand why they're calling him former President Trump. He's president of the United States. This doesn't make any sense. And vocal supporter of his trade policies is under fire after disclosing stock trades made shortly before Trump announced a 90-day pause on tariffs. What we know, according to financial disclosure reports and USA Today, Greene purchased between $21,000 and $315,000 worth of stocks in major tech and logistic companies, including Apple, Adobe, NVIDIA, Palantir, and Cummins. Now, of course, you know, President Trump has been speaking out a lot about NVIDIA, and he's had the tech executives at the White House for meetings, and Palantir, of course, is one of the largest defense contractors now. And a lot of the Palantir executives were very involved in supporting President Trump. They were against Trump. They were in favor of DeSantis. And then before that, they were primarily supporting Democrat candidates. And then once it became evident after the attempted assassination attempt that Donald Trump was going to be president, you saw the Palantir people jump on board. Why am I bringing that up? Well, because as a member of Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene is privy to insider information. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that that given the news and the events that have been in the news cycle over the last couple of weeks as it relates to semiconductors and NVIDIA, and as I said before, perhaps ending the Ukraine-Russia war, that of course is going to have an effect on the stock prices of some of these defense contractors. Marjorie Taylor Greene buying stock after she gets insider information about these companies. The trades occurred just before Trump posted on Truth Social that it was a great time to buy, a message that came less than 4 hours before the White House announced the tariff pause. This sequence of events has sparked accusations from Democrats who suggest Trump engaged in insider trading and that Greene may have benefited from advanced knowledge of policy changes. I would not say that Donald Trump engaged in insider trading, but I would say that if Marjorie Taylor Greene had insider information about President Trump's event or what President Trump was going to post, and a lot of members of Congress are briefed on the president's messaging ahead of time, then yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene is in the wrong. And this is why I think it's unethical, and this is why I think that it should be banned in Congress. That you should not be allowed to trade stocks if you are a member of Congress, and you also should not be allowed to trade stocks if you are the spouse of a member of Congress, because nothing's going to stop a member of Congress from giving the insider information to their spouse so that they can make the trades for them. Let's be honest, right? So we've seen that before. Under current law, members of Congress have up to 45 days to report stock transactions, raising the possibility that other lawmakers may have also made similar trades that are not yet public. So it really doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. Obviously, we've seen examples of both Republicans and Democrats engage in insider trading. And while insider trading itself is illegal, it's not yet illegal for members of Congress to trade stocks or for their spouses to trade stocks. Hopefully, we'll see legislation created to ban members of Congress from trading stock. But in the meantime, there are a lot of people out there taking advantage of the stock trades being made by their favorite members of Congress. Look, Nancy Pelosi's stock trades have their own X account. There are literally people that sit on TikTok all day and they sit on X and they simply just monitor the trades made by Nancy Pelosi to see what she's invested in. And there's actually an app that's just been created. It's called Dub. This new app was founded by a guy named Stephen Wang, and it allows you to actually ride the coattails of the most successful investors in the world. Let's go ahead and play this video clip.
Okay, here's the answer. Between a former House Speaker, the greatest investor of all time, and one of Wall Street's top hedge fund managers, who had the best performing portfolio of last year? According to 13 F filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission, last year, California Representative Nancy Pelosi and her husband had a return of 65.5% in their personal investment portfolio. Pershing Square hedge fund CEO Bill Ackman generated a 26.3% return, and the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, returned 15.8%. If your portfolio did it lag any one of these? There is now a way to ride the coattails of some of the most successful investors in the world. Dub is a trading platform that literally copies the investments made by legendary investors, hedge funders, and yes, politicians by following regulatory filings in real time. Customers give Dub money to invest, and then you choose which portfolio, whose you want to mirror. They have a whole bunch of them. And then Dub, in real time, makes the exact investments Ackman, Buffett, Ken Griffin, and other famous investors make. Dub is the brainchild of Stephen Wang. He is here in a Fox Business exclusive. I mean, we just sketched out the basics, but can you give me the details of how you copy trades, again, in real time?
Yeah, absolutely. So Liz, thank you so much for having me. And at its core, Dub is the first and only regulated copy trading platform. And how the copy trading works is any user can open up a brokerage account with us, just like Fidelity or Schwab. And then instead of picking stocks, they can browse portfolios and they can allocate any amount of money to automatically follow their trades. The same way you pick a stock, you can copy a portfolio. And the other side, if you're actually a great investor, if you think you're talented, you can also share your trades that you make on the platform for other people to copy. So it's almost like the very first social investing platform, very similar to almost Instagram for investing, where you've got the top influencer investors from Nancy Pelosi to different really talented investors that we crowdsourced, and the regular investor who can let them do the hard work for them.
Yes, well, we'll leave the whole question of whether politicians should be allowed to invest for another day. But it is stunning, that kind of return that you can then follow. So the theory is that, for example, you let Buffett do the work of combing through all kinds of SEC filings. And I mean, he's the expert at that, not the average investor. And he reads everybody's annual shareholder reports, and then he makes the decision. Your customers just piggyback?
Absolutely. And the whole thesis, the mission of Dub is really democratizing the ability for the average American to follow professional investors. Today, if you want to invest in a hedge fund or get a professional investor like a wealth manager at Goldman Sachs, you need to be worth millions of dollars. There are millions of Americans being left behind that aren't active in the stock market. I don't know if you know this, but 50% of Americans don't even have a single dollar active in a stock. And they're missing out the compounding returns. And we've seen how inflation and wage stagnation's crushed just investors and the regular American people that haven't been able to follow the trades and the investing.
Or they've been too scared. There's a lot of fear. Oh, do I buy this? Do I not? And by looking at somebody like a Bill Ackman, who 3 and 5 year performance, he's done really, really, really well. So let him do all of the work.
Absolutely.
Here's my question, though. A lot of these big institutional investors have to file quarterly what they've done. That's for transparency. But by then, maybe you missed the trade. Like, how do you do it in real time? 13F filings have to be filed, 45 days before the end of the quarter?
They do. So actually, there is a delay in the filing, because when the filing comes out, what we've done, and other traders on the platform, they've built proprietary algorithms, like quantitative algorithms, that automatically scan the filings of the trades in the 13Fs and automatically process them for trades real time on the app. And internally, we've hired a head of investments that's been working at some of the top hedge funds of the world, like Millennium and Goldman Sachs, and we're doing this in an automated fashion.
And you're registered with the SEC and FINRA.
Exactly. We're the very first broker-dealer to offer copy trading.
Before we go, two things. Number one, whose portfolio is the most popular to follow? And number two, how about your customer base? How many people are doing this? And it does cost $9.99 a month, right?
Yes. Right now, it's Nancy Pelosi. There are millions of dollars following Nancy Pelosi, but we've also crowdsourced so many top traders that you probably never heard of, and they're putting up crazy numbers. Just last week, we had our worst week in the stock market, but we had traders who were up 10, 15%, who are former chief investment officers of multi-billion hedge funds and celebrity investors on X. So that really goes back to this core of democratizing talent, of allowing any average person to now be able to invest with professionals in a single tap.
And number of customers?
We just crossed 200,000 downloads, and we're almost doubling every single month in growth right now. So it's been an absolute incredible journey, and we're at the precipice of bringing a retail investor revolution where it's no longer about picking stocks, but it's about copying other people and bringing Main Street to the access of Wall Street.
Yeah. Again, avoiding that fear of, should I don't know enough about this.
Absolutely.
I have my regular job. Stephen, pretty good for a Harvard dropout. Good luck, and we'll continue to watch it.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Great to have you. The company and the app is called Dub.
So if you also want to get rich like Nancy Pelosi, you can get on Dub. I think this is actually a pretty cool idea, especially for people that don't have a lot of knowledge about investing and they don't really know what to do, but they want to start somewhere. Well, they can start here. So I'm definitely going to check it out. I think that it's a pretty creative idea, especially given the fact that there's so much media attention and focus all the time over Nancy Pelosi and all of the X accounts that are tracking her trades and tracking the trades of other politicians. And as I just showed you, it doesn't matter whether you're Nancy Pelosi or Marjorie Taylor Greene. The American people are watching the trades that are being made by their members of Congress. So again, I personally don't think that members of Congress should be allowed to trade, but until it's made illegal, why not take advantage of it by getting on this app Dub? And then you too can be just as rich as, these members of Congress who somehow have net worths of $200 million, even though their yearly salary is $180,000 a year with benefits. So funny how that works, isn't it? Yeah. Moving on now. White House vetting crisis continued. Now, this is a new segment on my show. I've been doing it for the last 3 weeks, and it's a quite popular segment. So I'm going to be continuing with this every single episode of Loomer Unleashed going forward because, well, the content just writes itself. There is a vetting crisis in the Trump administration. And as I have shown you over and over again, it seems like there are people who work for the president who either, one, don't know how to do a proper vet, or two, they are just deliberately trying to sabotage Donald Trump by placing people in positions of power who really should not be in those positions of power. Now, I have 3 examples for you tonight. These examples focus on officials who are in the DOJ under the current Trump administration. And it should concern you. I think that you should contact your Republican senators and you should question whether or not the individual who I'm about to bring to your attention tonight should be confirmed or have a successful confirmation process in front of the Senate when he has his confirmation hearing. Because, look, we saw that the biggest issue with the Trump administration in the first term was the lack of vetting, and personnel is policy. And we have seen that there are terrible personnel decisions being made in the second Trump term, just like there were terrible personnel choices made in the first term that ultimately led to a literal coup being carried out against Donald Trump and his administration. So, look, I have literally been hired by Donald Trump 4 times, okay? 4 times the president has hired me on different occasions to work for him to do vetting and to do research. And for some reason, I am not working in the White House or working for the president of the United States, despite his directives to his staff to hire me because, well, his staff do not listen to him. His staff defy his authority. And so it really brings into question the power of the executive and who has the power of the executive. If the president of the United States can make a decision and that decision is not respected because his staff have more authority, and I'm not saying that, Donald Trump doesn't have power, but if the president gives an order for something to happen, that should happen. And it really just makes you wonder if his staff are undermining his directives as it relates to personnel choices, what else are they undermining him with in the administration? And what does that mean about the power of the executive, right? Does he really have ultimate power? Which is what we've been told and what we've been led to believe is that the president of the United States has this executive power. Or has his power actually been watered down by members of his own staff and his own cabinet who will look him in his eye and say, yes, sir, your wish is my command, yes, sir, but then they quietly leave the room, they leave the Oval Office, and they don't actually do what President Trump says, whether that's, hiring certain people that the president wants hired, firing certain people. We saw in the last few weeks with, look at Michael Waltz, for example, right? Individuals who were ordered to be fired under Michael Waltz were not fired. Instead, some of these individuals were actually promoted by Michael Waltz, including Ivan Canopathy, who the president wanted fired. So again, I'm just starting to question the power of the executive, not because I don't think that Donald Trump is powerful. I love Donald Trump. I'll always support Donald Trump. I think he's the best president of my lifetime. However, at the same time, I'm starting to have some serious doubts about who is in control in the Oval Office because I have just seen so many instances of Donald Trump giving orders and then his orders not being respected by his own staff. And Donald Trump is a very smart man. So, and I know that loyalty is very important to him. So I just know that with the receipts I'm about to show you all tonight, I don't believe that Donald Trump has seen them because I truly believe that if Donald Trump had this information about these individuals who were in his administration, they would not be in his administration. So let's jump right into it. So I posted some reports about an individual by the name of Stanley Woodward. And I'm going to get into Stanley Woodward first, and then I'm going to jump into Ashley Bondoc. These are the 2 individuals I'm going to be speaking about tonight. Stanley Woodward, who is a senior counselor to the president in the White House, who he was also just recently nominated by President Trump to be the Associate Attorney General at the DOJ, which is the third most powerful position at the DOJ. Now, Stanley Woodward is married to a woman by the name of Kristen McGough. And I posted a tweet about this. Kirsten McGough, the radical leftist wife of Stanley Woodward, President Trump's progressive Democrat nominee for Associate Attorney General at the DOJ, once testified in support of Black Lives Matter in 2023. And she took responsibility on video for the giant Black Lives Matter painting that was painted in front of the White House during the first Trump administration. You know that really big, giant Black Lives Matter sign that's on the street? And then Donald Trump's White House wanted it to be destroyed, right, when he was inaugurated a second time around. Well, the wife of the man who has been nominated to be the Associate Attorney General, both of them are progressive liberals. Okay, we're going to get into this too. But let's talk about the wife first, and then we'll get into her husband. In her testimony, Kristen argued in support of Black criminals locked up in D.C. and argued that their imprisonment was racist and reminiscent of Jim Crow laws. Her testimony was intended to help reform the criminal code for Blacks in D.C., where violent crime primarily carried out by Black men in Washington, D.C. has skyrocketed. I have exclusively uncovered written and oral testimony in support of BLM on video made by Kristen McGough in 2023. She is the wife of Stanley Woodward, the current nominee for Associate Attorney General at the DOJ, which is the number 3 top position at the DOJ under Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General. So this is a very powerful position for a radical progressive leftist to have. And, you know, his wife is a lawyer in Washington, D.C. Kristen McGough worked with a group that actually sued President Trump. We're going to get into this later. I'm going to show you all these receipts. But again, I said earlier today when I broke this story, the vetting crisis is starting to look more and more like deliberate sabotage of Donald Trump by members of his own staff. Scroll down. As I exclusively reported, Kristen's husband, Stanley Woodward, has donated to Barack Hussein Obama 15 times, but he has never once donated to President Donald Trump. And again, this is 3 tweets. All of them are quote tweets or original tweets of the other tweet. And so, you know, we're going to break down all of these tweets that I posted for you. Go down to the tweet underneath that. You can see this is regarding Stanley Woodward. He's a progressive. Scroll down. I want to show you his FEC report. You can see here, click on that photo. Stanley Woodward, 15 donations to Barack Obama. Scroll to the next photo. And 1 donation to Act Blue on the previous screen. Go to the next photo. There you go. That's his wife. Her name is Kristen McGough. I just read to you the report that I published about her today. She actually uses pronouns in her bio. So again, how is the Associate Attorney General nominee supposed to do his job? Let's just say he gets through his confirmation. God forbid. I mean, honestly, I hope that this segment goes so viral and that my story goes so viral and gets so much outrage that Donald Trump just revokes his nomination, because honestly, I can't imagine. Everybody has pillow talk, you know, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. Oh, honey, what'd you do at work today? Oh, I did this. Oh, you know, I can't stand this person I work with. Oh, they're so effing annoying. Oh, this person. Oh, this. Oh, my boss did this. Oh, blah, 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 blah. How are we supposed to trust that the guy, the progressive Democrat, Stanley Woodward, who has been nominated by President Trump, and again, I can't believe that he's been nominated by Trump. It really makes me think that Trump has been completely blindsided about this guy and his wife. How are we supposed to trust that Stanley Woodward is going to be able to do his job as Associate Attorney General, fulfilling the wishes of the Trump administration, including going after jihadists and anti-Semites? Like, I'm not talking about criticism of Israel, right? I'm talking about like hardcore anti-Semites that are on video physically assaulting Jewish students and, you know, supporting Islamic terrorist organizations. How are we going to trust him to go after those individuals? How are we going to trust him to go after the funders of Black Lives Matter and Antifa? All things that were promised were going to happen during this next Trump administration when Donald Trump was campaigning, and also promised by the new Attorney General, Pam Bondi. How are we going to expect him to go after and prosecute all of the Democrats that staged a coup against Donald Trump, right? all the people involved in election fraud. How are we going to expect him to go after universities that are in non-compliance with DEI? Executive orders banning DEI when his wife has pronouns in her bio. Hey, honey, how was work? Oh, it was good. We had a vigil today where we all got on our knees and we prayed to our Lord and Savior, George Floyd. We love our black crackheads. How was your day, honey? Oh, it was good. But, you know, President Trump and his administration really want Black Lives Matter and their funders to be prosecuted for financial fraud and acts of domestic terrorism. Oh, I'm going to divorce you if you do anything to impede the social justice of Black Americans. We need to start using your position to implement reparations. White people and Donald Trump need to pay reparations to every single Black American because white people are racist. And if you don't use your position as Associate Attorney General to do my bidding as your Marxist, gender dysphoric wife, I'm going to divorce you. And then I'm going to give your kids gender transitioning hormones and turn them into trannies. I mean, really, that's how it's going to go down. How do you expect, how do the people that work at the DOJ, how are they supposed to trust their colleague, Stanley Woodward? How are they going to trust that he's not going to go back to his crazy wife and leak everything, and then she's going to leak all the information, the confidential information in the DOJ to all of her friends in Black Lives Matter, all these progressive leftist law firms that are suing the Trump administration? His wife is a lawyer in D.C. that works for a liberal firm that advocates for illegal aliens. On her LinkedIn, let's go back to some of the posts I have about her. Let's exit out of this. If there's another screenshot, here we go, right here, the next one. Oh, wait, go back down to the previous tweet. Up. Yep. In 2020, this is the group she worked with, Washington Lawyers Committee. Kirsten McGow worked with the Washington Lawyers Committee, and they sued Donald Trump. Do you remember when Donald Trump was in front of St. John's Church in Washington, D.C., when Black Lives Matter was rioting in front of the White House, and he took a Bible and he posed for a photo with it, and they had to tear gas the Black Lives Matter rioters because they were trying to physically assault Donald Trump and hop over the fence at the church and try to burn down the church? They tried to burn down a historic church. Yeah, remember that? Yeah, well, they had to tear gas these people because they posed a threat to the safety of Donald Trump. So what did Kirsten McGow do? She sued the Trump administration on behalf of Black Lives Matter. Look at this. This is the press release issued by the group she worked with. June 4th, 2020, Summer of Love. Protesters who were attacked by federal troops in front of the White House on Monday night as they were demonstrating non-violently. Okay, they were very violent. They were engaged in vandalism against police brutality, sued Donald Trump, Attorney General William Barr. And they sued the Attorney General, and now her husband is up for nomination to be Associate Attorney General. Are you fucking kidding me? Secretary of Defense Mark Esper and numerous other federal officials today for violating their constitutional rights. The lawsuit was filed by the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs, ACLU, the District of Columbia Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under law, and the law firm of Arnold and Porter. Quote, what happened to our members Monday evening here in the nation's capital was an affront to all of our rights, said April Gogans, the core organizer of Black Lives Matter DC, the lead plaintiff in the case. The death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor at the hands of police officers. First of all, George Floyd died from a fentanyl overdose. So now, okay, we have a wife of the nominee, the Trump-nominated Associate Attorney General, who is now pushing lies out, suing the Trump administration, lying openly about the cause of death for a career Black criminal who, quite frankly, deserved to die. I mean, let's be honest. If you're going to endanger people and put guns to the bellies of pregnant people like George Floyd did, and you are going to use fentanyl and you are going to engage in dangerous behavior, don't be surprised when you die. Okay, when you play Russian roulette with your life, maybe you deserve to die. I don't know. But don't blame it on police officers, because George Floyd was not killed by a police officer. In fact, Derek Chauvin essentially is a sacrificial lamb Okay, he was basically sent to prison as a way to appeal to and appease, right? Not just appeal to, but also appease the animalistic activities of these rioters in Black Lives Matter who were threatening to literally burn cities down. And they were burning cities down. Over $2 billion of damage to public property by these Black Lives Matter domestic terrorists. And now the nominee for Associate Attorney General, Stanley Woodward, yeah, his wife is the one representing all of these criminals, these domestic terrorists, and suing the Trump administration on their behalf. Now is our time to be heard. We won't be silenced by tear gas and rubber bullets. Well, then you probably shouldn't have tried to hop a fence and physically assault the president of the United States and endanger his life. You know, they're always such victims. All these Black activists in Black Lives Matter, they always like to act like they're such victims, right? Oh, poor me. Woe is me. I'm Black. Oh, I'm perpetually oppressed. Blah, blah, blah. You know, it's always perpetual oppression with these people. Why is this guy even around Donald Trump? Like, I mean, honestly, who the fuck is doing the vetting in the White House? Okay, can we just have an open conversation about this? Because it sucks. It sucks. And I want to meet the person who's going to look at Donald Trump straight in the face and say, yeah, Mr. President, this man is a progressive liberal. He doesn't like you. He donated to Obama, who spied on your campaign 15 times, to be precise. He never donated to you. Okay, cheap fuck. Received a lot of money from clients affiliated with Donald Trump. Never wanted to even make a max donation. I mean, how much money did this guy make representing people in Trump's orbit? That's why some people in Trump's orbit are gaslighting everybody and advocating for him, because he represented Peter Navarro. Oh, yeah, such a great lawyer. Guess what? Peter Navarro went to jail. Okay, so if he was such a good lawyer, how come Peter Navarro went to prison? Think about it. Really, let's be honest. I saw another report today. This was actually pretty disturbing. Pull this up on my phone. There was a report in the Gateway Pundit. We're going to get this pulled up. In May of 2024, that says U.S. prison hell. J6 defense attorney Stanley Woodward refuses to answer J6 hostage Ryan Samsel's call for emergency surgery to remove deadly blood clots. So this guy is a progressive leftist. He wants to pretend like he was such a big fighter for J6ers. And yet there's J6ers that are literally running to the media talking about how when Stanley Woodward represented them, he refused to take their phone call when they were in a life and death situation and needed surgery to remove deadly blood clots. And this is the guy that Donald Trump has nominated to be the Associate Attorney General. Are you kidding me? I mean, if you think this is bad, you can scroll down. Let's look at this article just so people can see the facts. J6 political prisoner Ryan Samsel needs to get to the emergency room immediately. Instead, he is perpetually locked in a cell of the New York prison system where inmates, including Jeffrey Epstein, are known to mysteriously kill themselves or beg for medical care for days before they die. After languishing for over a month in solitary confinement on the roof of the Metropolitan Detention Center, Brooklyn, a prison notorious for its horrific conditions, Samsel called the Gateway Pundit in duress on Friday. "I can't walk. I'm in so much pain. It's so fucked up here. My leg is swollen where I had the blood clot. It's real stiff where my ankle is." Samsel explained on the recorded line at the federal prison, "You can feel there's something in there. When I walk, it hurts. I filed a medical grievance, and Sam told me he's going to get me to see a medical doctor." I mean, this is just totally crazy. For protesting on January 6, 2021, Ryan Samsel was caged in a filthy cell, enduring the stench of sewage leaking through the ceiling, the sound of nonstop screaming and fighting amongst other inmates who have lost their minds from constant lockdown. Let's scroll down. Being held on a block with child predators and trannies, starving rather than eating the rotten food he is served, which we know is infested with maggots, and the uncertainty of whether he'll survive incarceration without surgery. For weeks, the jail has canceled Samsel's legal calls, but allegedly his attorney, Stanley Woodward, and mitigation expert Sam Mangle, whom Samsel just paid a whopping $45,000 to, were told he canceled their calls. Samsel's family tried reaching Woodward numerous times to no avail when Samsel went missing and the whole barred from communication. Finally, Woodward responded with a text claiming he refused 3 calls with me this week. Ryan called me last week and spoke with him briefly. He said that he never canceled the video conference and the jail must be canceling the calls. I told him the another video call will be scheduled, and he said that he will be there if the jail does not cancel. Something does not make sense. Ryan does not have access to communicate with anyone while he's in the hole, and he just paid $45,000. So why would he cancel the meeting when he wants all of this stuff to be done? Scroll down. In Woodward's absence, this reporter found another attorney willing to immediately assist Samsel. Attorney John Gross agreed Thursday to file an emergency complaint that would persuade a judge to allow him to get to the hospital. Meanwhile, Woodward asked Samsel's family to let him know he must simply file a medical slip to see a doctor. Scroll down. Scroll down some more. You can see the screenshot. Scroll down some more. Okay, yeah, just have him file a medical slip, and I'm not going to answer the calls. Yeah, if you're a progressive leftist and you believe that J6ers are domestic terrorists, do you think you're actually really going to work as hard as you can to make them avoid jail time, or are you going to sabotage their case? I'm not saying that he sabotaged their cases, but you're not going to really be politically or emotionally invested in the case that you are representing clients on, because you don't care about it. And in this administration, we have seen the DOJ be weaponized against Trump supporters, and we have seen Donald Trump, his staff, his family members, and his most ardent supporters, including the J6ers, be subjected to civil rights violations and all types of attacks. And at the end of the day, I think it's really important that we have people that are loyal to the president and ideologically aligned to fulfill the will of the MAGA mandate that sent Donald Trump to Washington for a second term. So I'm not really confident that Stanley Woodward, given his record, is going to be able to, carry out all the federal civil litigation that's going to be required of him in this position as Associate Attorney General. And I don't really think he's qualified for the job. Let's go back to the tweets. I have a couple more tweets here. I want to show you some more images. I posted a tweet earlier. You go to my X account. One of the more recent posts. Let's go to my profile and scroll down my page. It's a photo of his wife's profile photo. Scroll down, a little bit more, right there. There we go. Meet Stanley Woodward. Let's open up that tweet. He's the new Trump-appointed nominee for Associate Attorney General at the DOJ. He's awaiting his confirmation in front of the Senate. Stanley Woodward and his wife, Kristen McGowan, are both progressive Democrats. His wife sued Donald Trump in 2020. And they are both massive supporters of Black Lives Matter. Every single MAGA voter needs to call their GOP senators and tell them to not vote to confirm Stanley Woodward. Associate Attorney General is the third most powerful role at the DOJ. I said I'm willing to bet anything Trump's staff didn't show POTUS any of this information or any of the oppo I dug up about Woodward and his wife. Some of his staff constantly gaslight him and hide important information from him and then pretend that they don't when they get called out for it. This is unacceptable. What a slap in the face to MAGA. There you go. That's the photo. Scroll down some more. There you go. There's Stanley Woodward, his two kids, and then his wife, Kristen. Black Lives Matter. Is that really who we want working in the DOJ? On behalf of the Trump administration? Are you kidding me? Like this guy with a Black Lives Matter profile photo with his wife. I mean, any guy that allows his wife to put his face with a Black Lives Matter filter and their two white children, blonde white children with the Black Lives Matter filter is an absolute cuck. Okay. So let's just get that, situated once and for all. Not only is he a progressive leftist, but he's also a cuck to allow his wife to put two innocent young kids, white kids, on a profile photo with the Black Lives Matter logo on it, almost like they have to already at such a young age make amends for their own skin color, right? I personally think that's child abuse. Other people might disagree with me, but I think that this is a form of child abuse. And I think it's disgusting. And I don't think that Stanley Woodward should be allowed to serve in the Trump administration. Let's go back to my X account because I actually have a video clip of his wife. Let's go back actually to the story that I broke today regarding Kristen McGowan. Scroll down. There we go. Click that one. Scroll up though to the top. So exclusive video, Kristen McGowan, the radical leftist wife of Stanley Woodward, the Trump appointed nominee for Associate Attorney General at the DOJ, testified in 2023 in support of the domestic terrorists and Black Lives Matter and advocated for the criminal system in D.C. to be reformed because she said that it was akin to Jim Crow laws, and she argued our laws are racist towards Blacks. In the video, she said, on June 4th, 2020, we painted Black Lives Matter on the street in front of the White House to send a message that our city stood with Black lives around the country, and especially here in our city. McGow took responsibility for painting the large Black Lives Matter mural in front of the White House in June 2020 during the Summer of Love. Let's scroll down. When Trump was president during his first term. Notice her Zoom name in the video. I'm going to play that video for you momentarily. It says Kristen McGow, she, her. So she willingly chose in this video to use pronouns, which suggests, given the fact that pronouns are used by trannies, that she supports the trans agenda. None of the other Zoom attendees or participants use pronouns. You're going to see this momentarily. So again, I'm going to ask this question one more time, since there are some people who clearly have some deficiencies, mental deficiencies, working for the president in the White House. Why would we want an associate attorney general at the DOJ who is married to a Marxist lawyer who sued Trump in 2020 on behalf of BLM? Can anybody tell me, can any of the geniuses who work for Donald Trump tell me why we want this? Why do we want a Marxist working for Donald Trump? Let's go ahead and play this video clip. This is, we have to go through 9 hours of video because this is part of a 9-hour video clip. So it took a lot of research to find this, and I was able to dig it up within the 9 hours of the video footage of Kristen McGow in a video clip. Yeah. Speaking out, advocating in support of Black Lives Matter, calling out the DC criminal code, accusing it of being racist. So let's go ahead and play this clip.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from Kristen McGough from Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs.
Good morning, Councilmember Pinto, and thank you for the time. My name is Kristen McGough. I am an attorney with the Washington Lawyers Committee. I'm also a resident of Ward 1 here in the district. On June 4th, 2020, we painted Black Lives Matter on the street in front of the White House to send a message that our city stood with Black lives around the country, but especially here in our city. The mayor's proposed budget to defund the Criminal Reform Commission sends a message also, but a different one, that Black lives actually don't matter here in the district. As it stands, our city maintains a harsh and unyielding criminal legal system that to this day has profound and negative consequences on our Black communities. As Dr. Ganush mentioned, 43% of the people in our city are Black, yet more than 92% of individuals incarcerated for DC code offenses, both here and at the Bureau of Prisons, are Black. The district has one of the highest rates of incarceration in the nation. Involvement in the criminal legal system is a driver of persistent inequality and inequity and creates barriers to opportunities in housing, employment, credit, and education. It destroys individual lives, families, communities, and it harms rather than creates public safety. While our criminal legal system is not the only factor that creates and sustains racial inequality, it is a significant one. The district's criminal laws date back to the era of Jim Crow and were written by a congressional, not a local committee, and chaired by a white supremacist from South Carolina. The cruelty and bias embedded in our criminal laws were exacerbated in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, disguised as efforts in the war on drugs and the war on crime. Mandatory minimum sentences and harsh penalties for drugs and guns caused the city to grow accustomed to increasingly long sentences, and with it, the suppression of the Black community. The disapproval resolution to the revised Criminal Code Act was a disappointment of epic proportion, and its as yet unknown ripple effects weight the seams of the very fabric of our democracy. While the mayor's veto of the revised criminal code was frustrating, the council's all but unanimous overturn of that veto demonstrated that the city is indeed ready, and its locally elected officials recognize the need for a new criminal code. And while the RCCA did not ultimately become law, that is no reason to stop trying. Instead, we must try harder. If the council decides to repass the current RCCA over and over until Congress keeps their hands off our city, you will hear no objection from me on that approach. But however the council decides to advance a new criminal code, it will need the guidance of the Criminal Code Reform Commission to do it. Certainly, for functional ways to pass the legislation in a piecemeal fashion, the commission would be the place to start. None of us has the institutional knowledge that the commission has, and to discard it, especially now, is reckless at best. It would be a great disservice to our community and to the Black lives that we say matter to simply make haphazard changes to appeal to largely uninformed criticisms of the current RCCA, if that's what the council chooses to do, without the guidance of the commission. No one here, I apologize, no one here has the foundational work that the commission has, and perhaps not even individual members of the advisory group, to advise the council on any proposed changes. And what's more, allowing the current iteration of the commission to use their reservoir of knowledge to form the foundation of reforms to Titles 23, 24, and 50 will save a significant undertaking in reabsorbing and digesting all of the multidimensional and multi-jurisdictional knowledge that helped to frame the Title 22 revisions. We cannot say that we have accomplished the modernization of our criminal legal system unless we undertake to reform these titles as well. As a 10-year veteran of the Criminal Justice Act panel, who has tried nearly 20 jury and 50 bench trials, I have seen firsthand how these poorly written statutes result in disparate and different interpretations regarding requisite mental states. I have struggled mid-trial to rewrite jury instructions with recent case law from the Court of Appeals attempting to clarify elements of an offense that are not articulated in the statutes at issue. I have seen judges struggle with mandatory minimum sentences when circumstances beg for their discretion, and I've seen prosecutors use that time to all but force individuals to give up their rights to trial. I would be remiss if I didn't mention at last the loss of all the work that people learned from the Commission's proposed data analysis work. The value of that work, especially coupled with the data collection undertaken by the Sentencing Commission, cannot be overstated. To be able to look at the functioning of our criminal legal system in an impartial and data-driven way is absolutely essential to our legal system's evolution into an impartial, even-handed, and equitable system. More than once, and perhaps most pointedly for this discussion with the passage of the NEAR Act, this council has recognized that the only way to take a real hard look at the way our city operates is to take the noise out of the room and let the data speak for itself. But unlike with the NEAR Act, in the context of the criminal legal system, we already have in place an agency that can analyze the data we collect and tell us what it's saying. To forgo this opportunity to look at the data and to continue to challenge ourselves to be better would be to do the very thing the RCCA's critics have done, to make decisions based on race-rooted rhetoric, impressions, and perceptions, and instead of actual facts. To defund the commission now is to say, you were right, Congress, we do not need this. Black lives do not matter. But we painted the street 3 years ago for a reason, because they do matter.
And Kristen, you're a bit over time. Just want to ask you to summarize and wrap up.
We cannot give up on the restoration of our criminal legal system, and that necessitates, as it did today, as it did 6 years ago, the funding of the Criminal Code Revision Commission. I apologize for going over time. Thank you, Council Member.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from Katya Seminova in Public Defender Service, DC.
Good morning. I'm Ketter. So as you saw, right, she was not only talking about how the criminal justice system in DC is discriminatory and racist towards Black people. It has nothing to do with the fact that, you know, Black people just commit more crimes than white people. Just look at the national crime statistics in our country. Violent crime happens, especially in Washington, D.C., where majority of the people that live in Washington, D.C. are Black. All these career bureaucrats, for the most part, they don't live in Washington, D.C. Woodward and his wife do. But for the most part, a lot of these people live in Virginia. Washington, D.C. proper is majority Black. So, yeah, of course, you know, you're going to have, if you have a majority of the population is Black in Washington, D.C., majority of the people in the prisons in Washington, D.C. are going to be Black. It's just common sense, has nothing to do with racism or social justice, as Stanley Woodward's progressive liberal wife with pronouns. I'm sure you saw it says she, her. If you cut back to that screenshot on the Zoom, without playing the video, you can see for yourself that you know, only one of the other individuals had pronouns, but the main host, Brooke Pinto, of that call did not have pronouns. And so, again, she is sympathetic, not just to Black Lives Matter, but also the trans agenda. We don't use pronouns. Donald Trump has made it the official policy of the United States of America that there are only two genders, so male and female. And when you use pronouns, you are entertaining the idea that there's they, thems. And that, you know, trannies are another gender, or that trannies they're gender dysmorphic. They have a mental illness called gender dysmorphia. and they want to entertain and project their mental illness, their gender dysmorphia, it's a psychiatric disorder, onto the general public by making the general public entertain this fucked up idea that they are called they thems. I'm not going to call anybody a they them. Not. You're either a boy or you're a girl. You're a man or you're a woman. So again, I don't really understand how Stanley Woodward is going to sue universities on behalf of the Trump administration that don't comply with the bans on DEI, or how they're going to handle universities that refuse to uphold the executive order keeping men out of women's sports when he has to go home to his wife each night. Is she going to say, I'm going to divorce you? I'm going to divorce you if you actually take legal action against this university for allowing men to play in women's sports? I mean, how are the DOJ employees supposed to trust their conversations with Stanley Woodward aren't going to get leaked back to his wife, who's then going to go leak everything to CNN or MSDNC or Black Lives Matter or Antifa or all these progressive liberal groups that she is working with as a lawyer? You literally cannot trust him. So I don't think that he should be allowed to serve in the Trump administration. And again, it gets even worse. Let's scroll down. If you want to see the written testimony as well, again, what you just heard on video, in that video, that 5-minute video, is also transcribed here. April 13th, 2023 is when that video testimony was given. It says testimony of Kristen McGow, Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety Criminal Code Reform Commission, Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs. There's 4 pages you can scroll through. Exclusively reported by Loomer Unleashed today. Nobody else had this. And you can already see that his woke progressive mentality is already starting to affect the current DOJ under the Trump administration. And if you don't believe me, let's pull up the tweet about Ashley Bondoc. This is another story that I broke over the weekend about the vetting crisis in the Trump administration and the reason why Stanley Woodward is not fit to serve as Associate Attorney General. Here we go. This is one of the people that he brought on to work at the DOJ. So according to her LinkedIn, right, she was brought on by Stanley Woodward. So pro-legal alien and pro-DEI lawyer Ashley Bondoc was recently hired to work at the DOJ under Pam Bondi as a special assistant to Stanley Woodward, the senior counselor to President Trump at the White House and the new Trump nominee for Associate Attorney General. So Stanley Woodward had to approve Ashley Bondoc, who is now working in the executive office of the president at the White House underneath Stanley Woodward. That's her boss. So he selected her. They all report to Pam Bondi. Okay. According to Ashley Bondoc's LinkedIn profile, she worked as a public interest intern for the American Bar Association Commission on Immigration. During this time, Ashley worked to help illegal aliens by doing the following legal jobs in her position. And again, I am not editorializing this at all. This comes directly from her LinkedIn. I'm going to show you the receipts on that momentarily because you're going to say, oh, well, what's the evidence that you have? The evidence is her own wording, word for word. This comes directly copy and pasted from her LinkedIn page. Let's scroll down and actually show people before we read it. You can scroll down. There we go. The highlighted portion. Public interest intern, American Bar Association Commission on Immigration. Again, exit out of that highlighted section. Go back up to the tweet. Ashley Bondoc, yep, scroll down a little bit. Special assistant to the senior counselor. That, of course, is Stanley Woodward, Executive Office of the President, President Trump. This happened 2 weeks ago. The White House, Executive Office of the President, DC. Exit out of that. Right, click on the other part of the LinkedIn page. Senior Advisor, U.S. Department of Justice, as of April, right? So as I said, but 2 weeks ago, April 2025, President, Office of the Associate Attorney General. That's going to be Stanley Woodward. Special Assistant to Senior Counselor, Executive Office of the President, Stanley Woodward. Exit out of that. Let's go back up to list her job requirements. During this time, Ashley worked to help illegal aliens by doing the following legal jobs in her position. So this is on her resume before she went to the DOJ and was like, hi, I would like to work in the Trump administration. provided legal assistance to detainees in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE facilities across the nation through a phone hotline service communicating in both English and Spanish. So basically advocating for illegals in ICE. Prepared portfolios containing legal assistance information for ICE detainees to assist in resolving their immigration cases ranging from asylum claims to vacating criminal charges. So again, ICE, that's the agency that picks up illegal aliens, criminal illegal alien rapists, murderers, many of the same individuals who I showed you their mugshots of, whose mugshots were plastered around the front of the White House for raping kids, murdering women, dealing fentanyl, poisoning people with fentanyl, killing American citizens. These are the type of people who this woman, Ashley Bondoc, is representing. Criminals, people that murder United States citizens, okay? People that should not be in this country, and yet she thought that it was a good use of her time as a lawyer, okay? First of all, you're not gaining professional experience by helping a criminal, illegal alien piece of shit loser who should be deported back to the third world they came from when you advocate for these people. You are committing treason on the United States of America. So let's get that clear, okay? For all the people out there that want to say, oh, Laura, you're just being a little too harsh. She's doing her job as a lawyer. She's doing her job as a lawyer. I don't give a shit, all right? That's the problem with this damn country we find ourselves living in today. Who on earth thought that illegal aliens should be entitled to legal representation and rights? These people are not entitled to due process in our country. They are enemies. They are foreign enemies on U.S. soil. Okay, many of these people are murderers, rapists, pedophiles, drug dealers. They need to go back to where they came from. We need an immigration moratorium in this country. I don't even give a shit about all these illegal alien kids. Obviously, I don't want them to be sex trafficked, but I don't want to hear the sob story about how, they're from Venezuela, they're from this country, whatever. There's a lot of poor people here in America too that would like to be able to, rise in society and not have to compete with some non-English speaking Venezuelan toddler that's here because, their mother decided to give birth on U.S. soil and timed her pregnancy and her invasion of our country with her pregnancy, from her cartel boyfriend in MS-13 and trained Aragua. Evaluated detainee concerns to draft formal complaints forwarded to ICE. So imagine these ICE officers are just trying to do their jobs, okay? They are having to see horrific things. I don't know if you watched the press conference between Caroline Leavitt and Tom Homan the other day at the White House, but he was talking about how, when people attack him, they haven't seen what he's seen. He's had to look at 9-year-old girls who have the DNA of 10 men inside of this young girl who's lost everything innocent and pure about herself because she's been raped on her way to the United States of America, okay? ICE, they have to open up tractor trailers. Sometimes they find dead illegal aliens inside. They have horrible jobs. They have to engage in detaining, right, and arresting these illegal aliens, some of whom become very violent. They shoot at the ICE agents. They try to stab them. They spit on them. There's ICE agents who have been exposed to diseases because these illegals are transmitting diseases like Ebola and malaria and COVID and all other types of nasty diseases, HIV, AIDS. They are trying to save our country. These are American heroes. And this woman who is now working in our DOJ, thanks to somebody like Stanley Woodward, underneath Stanley Woodward, prepared complaints that were forwarded to ICE. How many ICE agents lost their job because of liberal DEI hires like Miss Ashley Bondoc, who's now working in the White House and working at the DOJ under Stanley Woodward with his approval, because little Miss Ashley Bondoc decided that she was going to help an ingrate illegal alien who shouldn't even be entitled to representation complain about the little old ICE officer that arrested them, right? I mean, imagine living with yourself, preparing formal complaints to ICE. These are terrible people who should not be able to be granted the prestigious position of working in the Trump administration. Okay, these are terrible people who have engaged in treason against our country. And they should be disavowed and they should be discarded of, professionally speaking, of course. I'm not inciting violence. But these people should be discarded from polite society for aiding and abetting the invasion of our country. They should not be working in the Trump administration. In early April, President Trump nominated Woodward to be Associate Attorney General. Scroll down. Woodward is the person who hired Ashley Bondoc. How does the Trump administration expect to carry out mass deportations when they are hiring illegal alien advocates to work at the DOJ and the executive office of the president? See receipts below. So again, vetting crisis. I don't just call it a vetting crisis for no reason, you guys. It is a crisis. The fact that we have illegal alien advocates and Black Lives Matter cheerleaders, people married to pronoun people, serving in the Trump administration, this is a crisis if I've ever seen one. Personnel is policy, and all it takes is one bad apple in the Trump administration to completely undo all of the victories and all of the wins that President Trump was celebrating yesterday on stage in Michigan at his rally. So while everybody wants to talk about all the wins in the first 100 days, personally, I think that the vetting crisis and the personnel problems in the Trump administration cancel out all the wins, because no one's going to care. Nobody's going to care someday about all the wins. Nobody's going to care about all the good and everything good that's happened and all the amazing things that Donald Trump has done when you have a fake whistleblower from the DOJ or one of these agencies that was really a Trojan horse leftist who slipped past PPO or got in because of a lack of vetting or because, they're friends with a senior advisor. Everybody just wants to go along and get along with the progressive leftists, and until he bites you one day. No one's going to care. And that's going to be it. You're going to have an impeachment. Maybe the president's going to get impeached. Maybe people are going to go to jail. I don't know. But it's going to end in a disaster. And these people who work for Trump are going to have nobody to blame but themselves. You heard it here first on Loomer Unleashed. Thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's episode of Loomer Unleashed. I'm going to be tracking and monitoring this vetting crisis in real time. It is only getting worse. You can expect it to only get worse because literally nobody in the Trump administration is doing vetting. They like to say they are, but look, I've shown you the receipts. There's no vetting going on, okay? Every single day, there's another crisis. So much so, it's literally a new segment on my show. So if you enjoyed this episode tonight, please be sure you're following me on Rumble, rumble.com/Laura Loomer, rumble.com/Laura Loomer. Hit the follow button, click Get Loomered. That's where you can support my locals page, where you can subscribe for $7 a month or $70 per year to support the work I'm doing here at Loomer Unleashed. Be sure that you check out loomered.com, which is my website where you can read all of my articles, my original investigative reporting, stuff that the media is not showing you anywhere else, right? Exclusive paralegal alien and DEI advocate Ashley Bondoc joins DOJ as special assistant to the White House senior counselor. You're not going to see this news anywhere else, okay? But you will be the most informed. You will join people like President Donald Trump, who is a reader of Loomered.com and is a viewer of Loomer Unleashed. I think the whole world knows that now. The president watches my content. Also, please be sure that you retweet and repost this live episode on X. We are live right now on X at Laura Loomer and also on X at Loomer Unleashed. But with that, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next Tuesday for another live episode of Loomer Unleashed.
There is a young female journalist, conservative journalist, by the name of Laura Loomer.
If America's men acted like Laura Loomer, our problems would be fixed in about 5 minutes.
Chained herself to
She
Twitter.
chained her.
Right.